Starting now. Hello, and welcome to On the Turf, hosted by three guys who have never been on the turf. My name is Arjun.
I'm Sri Kanda.
And I'm Rohan Patel.
And we're back, just us three, for week 3 of the NFL. We've had two great guests over the past 2 weeks, but we wanted to do an episode with just us three as we enter in week 3. So we had a lot of interesting week 2 outcomes. First of all, we devoted a lot of last week to Browns Steelers, and Rohan here was adamant, and Adam, who was on the show last week, was adamant. No chance that the Steelers can win. And granted, the Browns did have a very devastating injury to Nick Chubb that all of us send our prayers to Nick, one of the best players and one of the most likable players on the Browns. But the Browns are still the Browns, and they still lost, and Deshaun Watson sucks. And it felt very good to see him just absolutely flounder on national television.
Okay, I'm not going to lie and say that didn't feel good, but let's not get ahead of ourselves and act like the Steelers are winning this game if Nick Chubb doesn't get hurt. You barely win a game, and the only way you win it is because the team's best offensive player. In fact, the team's only offense gets hurt. I don't really know. I don't know. I'm not putting much stock in this win. Steelers are still a pretty bad team in my opinion. Nick Chubb was. I'm looking at the stats right now. Nick Chubb was, for reference, tearing it up before he got hurt. He was 10 carries for 64 yards, 6.4 yards per carry. And losing him, completely takes him out of the game. I think it's unfair to say that this was a really reliable outcome, in my opinion.
Look, all I'll say is, all right, fine. Maybe if Nick Chubb plays, the Steelers lose this game. But purely out of glee, I will say that the $250 million man, Deshaun Watson, who the Browns traded 3 first-round picks for, mortgaged their entire franchise, gave him the first fully guaranteed contract in NFL history amid how many? At least 24 civil lawsuits against him. And when asked to be a franchise quarterback, he could not do that, which was just absolutely beautiful to see. And the defense just completely smothered him. So, sucks for Browns fans, sucks for Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb's a genuinely good guy, and I hope he's able to recover and return back to the NFL. But we had a lot of other good outcomes from week 2 and interesting outcomes, interesting 2-0, 0-2 teams. And so that's going to be our first segment today. Spotlighting some teams we don't usually talk about as much, and kind of going through some 2-0 teams, some 0-2 teams. With the 0-2 teams, are we panicking? What's your outlook on it? And for the 2-0 teams, is this a mirage or is this reality? So let's start off with a bang. The Bengals, for the second year in a row, are 0-2. They were my Super Bowl pick. I believe they were Shree's Super Bowl pick as well from the AFC. This is a team that I've been confident in ever since Joe Burrow had his rise about 2 years ago. I'll say from my perspective, I think this is definitely the most, I'd say if you're a Bengals fan, this is the most worried you should be after their slow starts the past couple of years. I think the Joe Burrow injury genuinely looks like it's limiting him, and if he's not able to get healthy, then this team definitely could be in for, I think I saw Nick Wright say it yesterday, a year from hell. This could be a really bad year if Burrow's not upright. But I think towards the end of the game, they looked like they regained their offense a little bit. So what do you guys think about the Bengals' outlook for the rest of the season? Is this 0-2 a reality? Is this going to be reality for the Bengals, or is it just a mirage of things to come?
Yeah, I'll go first. I think we all know this. They've always gone off to bad starts. I think it's only the question of how much Joe Burrow's calf injury is really if it's going to re-aggravate or whether that's actually affecting him as much. He hasn't really looked that good, especially in the first 2 games. He's thrown a couple touchdowns. The offense got better. I think there has been an improvement, but it is still very concerning to see whatever the production is so far. But it's the Bengals. It's a team that's made it to the Super Bowl with lots of talent on offense. I personally think that the defense has also regressed a bit, but that's just my opinion. I wouldn't be worried, but if the injury is really the concern, then I would, but I think they'll be back. That's just my opinion.
I've been on one side of this argument for most of the time, and I'm going to keep to that. I think this could be a bit of a reality for the Bengals. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think this is a bad team. Before the season started, I had them winning or contending in the division. But, Joe Burrow doesn't look like himself. He was really inefficient last week. He threw a really, really bad interception in the red zone against the Ravens. And Jamar Chase has been limited. He hasn't really been putting up the numbers that he usually does. And he's not the focal point of his offense like he should be. So that connection is a bit off too. And now, looking forward to what the Bengals have ahead of them, you got a date on Monday night with the Rams, who have been playing really great football, I think. People wrote them off. I think they're still good. And you might have to play the game without Joe Burrow. Then you play the Titans, who have a pretty strong defense. You get a gimme against the Cardinals, and then you play the Seahawks, the Niners, the Bills. 3 pretty tough games, in my opinion. So their schedule's not doing them any favors. If they want to kick it into gear, they got to do it now, and they have to do it at a high level against other good teams. For me, that's not really a recipe for success. They don't have any gimme, or outside of the Cardinals, they don't have a gimme on their schedule to get a get right game, or a few get right games in a row. It's going to be a lot of tough fought battles. Because of that, I think this slow start continues for a little bit too long, and by the time they might be able to make it up at the end of the year, it could be too little, too late for them.
Yeah, I will say for the Bengals, the one other thing is that I think we thought, again, I think we alluded to this, we thought the AFC would be a lot better than it is, but I think there's still an opportunity for the Bengals even late season. But let's move on to a 2-0 team that I certainly, I guess based on their schedule, I would expect them to go 2-0. But this is a team, I've talked to Rohan about this. I don't think we've talked about this team on any segment, really, at all, over nearly 3 years of On the Turf. So let's talk about them. The Washington Commanders are 2-0. Sam Howell, their new starting quarterback, has played pretty well, all things considered. Had a little bit, I don't think it was his fault against the Cardinals, but the offensive line had a rough day against the Cardinals in week 1, was able to eke out a win there. And then against the Broncos, that pass rush, Chase Young is back, that pass rush is really getting after the quarterback, got after Russell Wilson, I think maybe about 6 sacks, I want to say, in that Broncos game. And Sam Howell is getting the ball to his playmakers, he's playing smart ball. And I think in comparison to a lot of quarterbacks maybe we thought would be better at this point in the season, Sam Howell's playing pretty good. For the Washington Commanders, do you guys think this is, is this 2-0? Are they going to be finally back in the playoffs this year, or is this a mirage? I'll say for myself really quickly, unfortunately, I think this team is going to be competitive throughout the whole season, but they're playing in maybe the best division of football in the NFC East. They have to play still the Cowboys twice, the Eagles twice, and they're going to have some tough games. I think I have to see a little bit more from this team to know if they're really good right now. But right now, I'd say they probably end around 8-9 wins. But I'm not sure if they're a playoff contender with how kind of green their roster is.
Yeah. It's interesting to me, Sam Howell's the first franchise quarterback, to be winning every single one of his starts. He's 3-0 in his starting position as a quarterback, which is amazing. But, they play the Bills on Sunday, and and the Bills look fantastic against the Raiders. Like, we doubted them week 1, but they came back. They were very good. I know we roasted Camille a bit, but they came back. They were strong. So I think the Bills, honestly, if they beat the Bills, then, yeah, I think we have, like, a good team to be, like, that we can talk about more on the podcast, and, like, we can give some more recognition, and that is a very good, litmus test for them. But, they play the Bills, and then they play the Eagles back-to-back. So I don't know. I think it's going to be a struggle. Probably 7 to 8 wins is what I had. I had them going like 5 wins, but now looking after these first 2 games, they seem pretty competitive. So maybe 7-8 games. Yeah,
I agree with that. I was going to mention those 2 games coming up. I think, like you said, that is a really good test for what this team can do. Last week was impressive. I don't think we really foresaw. We thought their defense was going to be good. I didn't think their offense was going to be this good against what was historically a pretty solid Broncos defense. Maybe not so much anymore. But, Howell did well. The ground game helped him a lot. Brian Robinson trounced on my fantasy team, trounced over the Broncos, too, to the tune of over 80 yards and 2 touchdowns. I think a lot of it, the 2-0 is a product of the teams they played. I think the Broncos are still the Broncos from last year, and the Cardinals are obviously, avidly trying to lose every game. Truly avidly trying to lose every game. So I'm not putting too much stock into it. This might be a bit better of a team than we thought they were. The offense might be a bit better than we thought they were, but it's not enough to really be a contender.
Yeah. Next, Rohan talked about his team, so let's move down to Shree's team. The Vikings are 0-2, coming off a really weird game, I think, against the Eagles, where Kirk Cousins was playing lights-out football. I think this is one of those games where I was sitting there and I'm like, wow, Kirk Cousins can really be good sometimes. And he played just an amazing game. But still, this team is 0-2. And for me, it seems that the monkey's paw has kind of turned for the Vikings, where they were 11-0 in one-score games last year, and now they've been in 2 one-score games this year, and they're 0-2. And this is regression to the mean right as in front of your eyes if you've ever seen it. But this team's offense can really turn it on when they need to. Justin Jefferson had an unfortunate fumble, turnover near the end zone. But when you've got Kirk, when you've got Justin Jefferson, now Jordan Addison, T.J. Hawkinson, now Cam Akers, who just came in just about an hour ago as of when we're filming this. But what do you guys think of the Vikings' outlook for the rest of the season? Unfortunately, I think this is going to be a team that's very competitive offensively, but defensively, I think they're going to just be a tire fire, to be honest with you. I think Brian Flores has done a good job with the pass defense. The run defense was just horrid, though, against the Eagles. They don't have the personnel. They're kind of in a rebuild right now on defense. I think this is, again, going to be a team that is around 7 to 9 wins. Good offense that gets them out of games, but it's not going to be, with how offensive-driven the league is now, I'm not sure it's going to be enough, especially when they have to play the Detroit Lions offense twice a year. And the Packers are no easy feat either. So, unfortunately, I think the Vikings are this is reality for the Vikings going forward.
Yeah, as much as it sucks, like in the one-score games, like I already knew it was going to happen from the start. Like I wasn't that confident in them, but here's the thing. Kirk Cousins is playing amazing. I still think this team can lock out. I had them as my 3rd seed, going like 10-7, but I could honestly see them being like a 7th seed, going 9-8 and losing the first round. Like I still think this team is a wild card potential team. I think that offense can genuinely carry that defense. When I think of this Vikings team right now, I think it's a terrible O-line and they have the worst run defense. Like they are like the Eagles ran all over the Vikings. DeAndre Swift, I mean, he's a great player, but 170 plus yards against the Vikings run defense. They literally ran the ball every single play on one of the drives. It pissed me off so much, but if they can get those things, cleared up, Brian Flores, he's, this is a defense that is playing a little bit more aggressive than what it is used to. Like Brian Flores is a very aggressive defensive play caller. So I think, adjustments need to be made. I think that it's still going to take some time, but they have some. I think the schedule is like pretty freaking hard. Like they have the Chargers coming this week, which we will talk about later in the podcast. They have the Panthers, which I think is one of those weeks where, like, yeah, this is a team that, we can beat. But we knew what happened with the Buccaneers, who are looking kind of good. But still, like, if we can beat the Panthers, that would be great. But then we have the Chiefs. So I personally think 2-3, 1-4, something like that. But after that, it actually gets a little bit easier. So I'm honestly seeing a 9-win team here. 8-9, probably 8, but yeah.
Gets easier. They played the Niners 2 weeks after the Chiefs.
Well, no. After post Niners, you have the Packers, who are a divisional rival, and then you have Falcons,
who look
the
pretty
Saints,
who look good.
The Saints, who also look good.
Okay, at this point, every single team is looking good one way or the other, except for the 0-2 teams like the Bengals, the Cardinals. Like every team is looking good in the NFL. It's just a matter of like how good they look. Okay, so like
yeah, I mean, for my take on the Vikings, I thought they'd be good this year. I thought the defense would take a step forward, especially with Brian Flores and a few defensive additions. That's clearly not the case. I mean, the against the Eagles, it was just all out. I mean, the run defense was obviously awful, but I think the run probably opened up the pass a lot too. I mean, Devonta Smith caught a few big passes. Jalen Hurts, I don't think, had too much trouble getting the ball to his receivers either. So, I mean, Vikings defense does look really, really, really bad. But next week, we'll talk about next week more when they play the Chargers. But I think that will show us a lot more about both these teams because I think both of them are on the edge. I think
they're very similar teams.
Like already early on, I think you're going to be looking at might be a must-win game for both teams and how competitive their divisions are. So it'll be interesting to see there. I'm going to hold out hope. I'm going to say the Vikings, I think, can turn it on, and that this offense can come to life more than already has and bail out the defense some games. But yeah, I mean, I don't personally love how things are looking for the Vikings right now, but I do think they can bounce back.
Yeah, and now moving to a team in the NFC South that we haven't talked about, again, much this season, but I don't know. I thought this team, I have this team in my predictions, sneaking in as a 7th seed, playing really good defense right now. The New Orleans Saints are 2-0. Derek Carr, new quarterback in town, getting into the playmakers. Michael Thomas is healthy. Chris Olave is there. Rashid Shaheed. Alvin Kamara comes back in a couple weeks. So this is an offense that's about to get one of their major pieces back, and a defense that's just playing out of this world right now. Smothered the Titans in week 1, and then made Bryce Young really overwhelmed in week 2. They've played some mid to bad offenses so far. But what's your outlook on the Saints this year? I think, again, I'm going to stick to what my prediction was. this team looks about what I thought it would be. Really good defense. Derek Carr makes a couple plays a game that takes them down the stretch. I really think it's health that's going to determine where this team goes. If Michael Thomas can stay healthy, if this offensive line can stay healthy, and if Kamara is still kind of prime Alvin Kamara, and even if he can be a little bit of that, I think this team could be a real force to be reckoned with in the South.
Yeah. I mean, I had them winning the division, so I'm glad it's looking like it looks like my predictions are working. But honestly, like the Bucs and the Falcons, like they look like pretty good as well. So this is a division that I think is gonna be pretty close. I think originally I thought like this division was like up for grabs for like anyone, and it actually looks like three of the teams can be very competitive with each other. It's gonna be a very interesting division. But I think Derek Carr, Michael Thomas, Chris Olave had an amazing catch the other day. Top 10 catch of the year probably at this point. So the offense is, I think it's a little inefficient, but one score games. I know maybe they're going to be like the Vikings last year, but they held Derrick Henry to 63 yards in Week 1 without a touchdown. So that is saying a lot for a run defense. So I think they'll make the playoffs. I have them going like 9-8, I think, for the 4th seed. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think I had the Panthers originally winning this division.
That was my summer pick as well.
I think there's 3 teams that look like they can win the division, and the Panthers are the only one that look like they can't. I think the Saints, if I have to pick a new one right now and modify my prediction, it'd be the Saints. I mean, their offense, Derek Carr, I think, just has to do enough. The offense has enough playmakers. Like you said, Kamara comes back. Defensively, they look, again, like you said, really, really good. Their run defense, I think, is really, really good. They held the Panthers to 100 yards rushing, which is even better considering they couldn't get anything going through the passing attack until maybe that last drive. Miles Sanders has only 43 yards on the ground and averages 3 yards a carry, so it did even better than they did against Derrick Henry, obviously. The defense is very good, obviously. I think the challenges will come in the future for the Saints. Let's see who they play. I mean, again, I don't put much stock in the past few games. The Packers will be an interesting one, I think.
Yeah. We'll talk about that a little later.
Against a quarterback who has shown some ability to throw. So maybe when they play a two-dimensional opponent, it could be a little bit tougher. But as of now, I think the Saints look good. Their defense looks good, and they're definitely a divisional contender.
Yeah.
Bucks.
All right, last one for this segment. A team that just lost on Sunday Night Football. This is the first time the New England Patriots have been 0-2 since 2001, which is also the year Tom Brady took over. This is a team that's been played really good opponents, like the Eagles and the Dolphins. I think we would agree about top 5 teams in the NFL. Certainly, the Dolphins, I would say, are contending for the top right now. And they've essentially made it one-score games, very close games down the stretch. This defense is playing really well. They've held these very good offenses in check, I think. The offense looks better than it did last year, which was, I think any improvement would have been better than last year with the Patriots offense. Now, Bill O'Brien and Mac Jones. I was especially really impressed by Week 1 with this team against the Eagles, how Mac Jones was able to move the ball. I'm not sure if that's more of an indictment on the Eagles' defense. That remains to be seen. But is this a reality or a mirage for the Patriots? I think this is a mirage for the Patriots. I think this team is going to start winning games. I think this week against the Jets is where I could definitely see the Patriots pulling off one. Obviously, we know Bill Belichick against the Jets and Zach Wilson, how good he is. And I just, I think this Patriots team, they're always going to be competitive under Belichick. They were competitive against very good teams. Their defense is playing well. I expect them to be in the playoff race by the time we're talking here at the end of October. I think this is a mirage for the Patriots.
I think it's the same story for the Patriots, at least over the past 3 years. Like, there's not enough talent on this offense to produce consistent results. I feel like when you talk about the Vikings or the Bengals or any other team, it's always the offense can pull through. But this is the team that's the exact opposite. The defense is gonna have to pull through on a lot of these games, and they've done that. The defense has kept them in the first 2 games. You held the Philadelphia Eagles to 25 points. You're allowed to let that offense come in. But then Mac Jones could not replicate that same talent from the same results from Week 1 to Week 2. And, you would think, potentially the Dolphins defense, a little worse than the Eagles defense, he could do something with there. And I know, every situation is different, but it's the same story. The offense needs to produce. But, they have, I think, the Jets coming up, who I actually think the Patriots will win. And then after the Cowboys, they have the Saints, the Raiders. So here and there, I feel they'll be an 8-9 win team. I still don't think they'll be like in contention for the playoff race just because the AFC is just inevitably more competitive than ever. So I'm gonna say no on being competitive, but like 7, 8, maybe 9 wins. Like yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't think this is a playoff team. I mean, the issue with the Patriots is they, again, like you said, their offense simply does not have enough firepower. We saw it week 1, they go down 16-0 to the Eagles. It's tough to come back from. Saw it again week 2, you go down 17-3 to the Dolphins. Too much to come back from. If this team gets down, they can't come back from it. I mean, come on. I mean,
but I'm saying against the Eagles, they did have. I mean, if Kayshon Boutte puts toe taps correctly, we might be talking about a completely different story here against the Eagles.
But my point is, I mean, you're asking for a lot from this offense. Is my point. Like,
yeah,
you can't ask them to string together 3 touchdown drives. You can't ask them to string together 3 scoring drives. This isn't an indictment, I think, on Mac Jones. Actually, I think Mac Jones has been outperforming what he should be doing.
Agreed, yeah.
It's an indictment on their weapons. I mean, you're asking him to throw to week 1, Kendrick Bourne was the leading receiver. Week 2, it's Devontae Parker. Hunter Henry has been consistent, but like there's not enough here working for him to throw to. And if you go down and you can't rely on Ramondre Stevenson and Ezekiel Elliott, and you're putting the ball in not Mac Jones' hands, but in his receiver's hands, it's not going to be a good outcome. Yeah. So I think you will see. I think this is a team that's going to win the games they should win. They're going to beat the Jets. They're going to beat the Raiders. They're going to beat those types of teams where their defense can do the job and their offense can do just enough. But put them against a good offense who can actually move the ball, and I think you're going to find they run into a lot of trouble because they get down quick, and then once their offense finally kicks into gear, it's too late.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, Belichick, the GM, has been very. I think he's been terrible kind of with personnel.
He's been awful. He's actually been very bad.
Yeah, with offensive personnel. But I think if he really wants his Patriots team to succeed, he should try and make a move for an offensive weapon at the trade deadline. But let's move into Week 3 preview. We have 5 games we're going to preview and talk about our predictions and what we see matchups-wise for these games. Not a lot of super big marquee matchups this week, but a lot of interesting ones, I think, that could tell us a lot about these teams. Kicking off with a 2-0 team we talked about earlier, we can get into a little bit more detail now. Atlanta Falcons, 2-0. I picked them to win the NFC South. They look a lot like the team I expect them to be. Run the ball, really good running the ball. Desmond Ridder. Defense looks better, though. And they're going to the Detroit Lions, another team I really love going forward. They lost a tough one to Seattle last week. The Seahawks look like they're back a little bit. I think Rohan was wrong about that one, but
I'd stand by that.
Detroit is favored by 6 in this game at home. I think very quick thoughts on this game. I think the run game for the Falcons is obviously going to be really good. That's what they're going to stick to. But I think Detroit's run defense is actually pretty good. They did a pretty good job against Kenneth Walker last week and Zach Charbonnet. So I expect them to do the same here. I think Jared Goff, apart from a pick 6, played an exceptional game last week, and I think he'll continue to do that. Despite the lack of David Montgomery, I expect Jahmyr Gibbs to have finally his breakout game this week against the Falcons defense, and I expect the Lions to win kind of a squeaker here, maybe let's say 24-23.
Ooh. Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting. Like both teams have very workable offenses and defenses to keep them in the game. So it's going to be very interesting. I think the Falcons kind of have a more of a one-dimensional offense compared to the Lions do. And it's going to be interesting how I think this is a litmus test for Desmond Ridder, right? Yeah. This is a game that he needs to come out. He needs to make the big plays. He needs to utilize Drake London. I think Kyle Pitts is injured, right? Or no, he's not. Never mind.
You would think he's injured.
He needs to use his. He needs to use his. He's on the field. Yeah. At least in fantasy, he hasn't been cooking. But yeah, he needs. This is a game that Desmond Ridder needs to step up with, and this is a game that this is the thing for the Lions. They just need to get through this game, and I'll take the Lions again because it's at home. We've seen Jared Goff be good, so I'll take the Lions. I don't think it'll be a squeaker. I think it would be a solid 1-score game, so I'll go 27-20.
Yeah, I mean, let me start by saying this might not be the Falcons of old.
No, I don't think.
I mean,
yeah, for sure.
They go down last week to the Packers, 24-12, going into the fourth quarter.
Oh wait, why didn't we make fun of Arjun for this?
They come back 13-0 in the fourth quarter, win the game. Really incredible showing from them.
Yeah, it's tough to watch.
Yeah, I mean, and we talked so much about the Packers the week before, saying that they were good. How we're impressed with them, how we're impressed with Jordan Love. I think Jordan Love played a good game. It's just, they put up 24 points. It's not bad. Just the Falcons did better. And I mean, I wasn't the biggest Falcons fan going into the year. I thought we were overrating them a little bit. but I'm on board with this. I mean, they play a type of football that works for them. They ran for over 200 yards last week. I'm looking at their stats right now. They ran the ball, I can't even do the math here. 45 times? 45 times in the modern NFL, you're running the ball. And
that's old school football.
Yeah, I mean, Bijan's explosive. Algier is good enough. He's good in short yard situations. And Desmond Ridder can make plays with his legs, and he keeps defenses honest. As a passer, I think he sucks. I think he stinks.
Yeah.
Objectively.
No one's just arguing with you there.
I don't think any of us are going to fight you on that one.
Yeah. but I mean, they can do enough on the ground, I guess, that it doesn't matter. And their defense, AJ Terrell, I think is gonna have a really good game against Amon-Ra St. Brown.
No one's stopping the Sun God.
I don't know.
No one stops the Sun God.
Well, I guess would Terrell even play him? I mean,
no, he's usually plays in the slot. Yeah.
So I guess maybe not. But I mean, if you take away the second and third targets like Josh Reynolds away from Goff, maybe makes it more difficult. I don't know. And take away their lead back in Montgomery. I don't think Jahmyr Gibbs is not a run between the tackles type of player. I don't know how much they need that to succeed, but a lot of their offense has run through Montgomery. I think the Falcons take this one, especially because I agree that the Lions might have played good run defense. I think the reality is this Falcons run offense is going to beat most teams in the league. So as long as they don't get down to a big deficit, which I mean they showed they can come back from, I think that the Falcons can truly run away with this one, literally run away with this one, and get a win. I'll say 23-20.
All right, now moving to our next one. This is going to be a fun game. I think Rohan already mentioned this one. The 0-2 Chargers at the 0-2 Vikings. I think, again, two teams that are very much mirror images of each other. Two quarterbacks playing really well. I think both quarterbacks are playing really well right now. But, great sets of receivers, great offensive personnel. Eckler looks like he might be out again this week. Mm-hmm. Both defenses just absolutely horrid, just terrible. Terrible defenses. We watched the Chargers completely blow a lead against the Titans. The moment I saw the Titans even get within striking distance, I knew the Chargers were going to lose that game. Like, we have seen the Chargers lose that game so many times, even before Brandon Staley, but the Brandon Staley effect carries over, and probably they lost in embarrassing fashion. The line right now, I believe the Chargers are favored by a point. Yeah, they are favored by a point. But I'm going to take the Vikings in this one. Couple things for me. I think the Justin Jefferson is going to be the best player on the field, just in general. I expect him to be pissed after last week about almost losing the game for his team, and I expect him to go on a tear, especially against this very bad Chargers defense. And second, and most importantly, is coaching. I think Brandon Staley has shown that he is not an NFL caliber coach. He's made some baffling decisions in game management and also just throwing leads, and his defense, which is his side of the ball, he has not been able to solve. And I like Kevin O'Connell. And the difference for me is that the Chargers find ways to blow games, and we saw last year that the Vikings can truly come back from anything. And even if the Vikings go down, I expect Kirk Cousins, Kevin O'Connell to figure this out. So I'm going to take the Vikings. I'll say in a very high-scoring game, 34-30.
Yeah. If there was any shootout, it's going to be this game. Of the week, the shootout of the week is going to be this game. I think literally both teams mirror each other in so many ways. You have an amazing offense, incredible defense. You have Joey Bosa, Daniil Hunter, who I think is leading the league right now in sacks, or is tying TJ Watt right now for leading the sacks in the league. So, we have two very explosive pass rushers. But the reason why I actually think the Vikings are winning is because Austin Eckler currently is injured. And if there's one thing that this Vikings team is horrific at, it is that run defense. So you take Austin Eckler away from that Chargers team, the run defense is at least stifled a little bit, even though Joshua Kelly looks great. So I'll take the Vikings, also in a very high-scoring game. I would honestly go, I'll go 36-33, something like that. I think that's what they did against the Colts, when they came back 0-33 deficit. So I'll go with that exact same thing, not the deficit part, but they win 36.
Brief interjection here: 36-33 is also the score that Shree predicted for Cowboys-Jets last week.
I don't know.
Which was one of the most baffling predictions I've ever seen.
You picked the right team at least, but in what world were the Jets putting up over 30 points?
No, I I actually had like 3 of my debate friends from like Texas like just text me and like yell at me over the phone after they saw this prediction.
Deservedly so.
Yeah, no, you deserve it. I remember Rohan was making the graphic and he's like, "Did you know Sharif put 36-33 for Cowboys Jets?" And I'm like, "Oh my god."
No, I just really like the Jets, but I just
don't.
I think I like them more than
They don't have Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
More than I should have, but yeah.
But on the point, I mean, I don't think all of us would agree with this, but I'm picking the Vikings too, for a lot of the same reason that you guys said.
There we go.
I mean, Staley is truly a football terrorist. I think you said before.
Dreadful.
Yeah, it's awful. And for someone who's supposed to be a defensive coach, and you have the defensive personnel, like maybe you don't have everything you need, but you have talented players.
You have more talent than most defenses.
Yeah,
in the
you have
league.
it. You have Joey Bosa, you got Khalil Mack, you got Eric Kendricks, you got the
Derwin
remnants
James.
of J.C. Jackson, you got Derwin James. I mean,
Oh.
you have 5 players that have been all pros, I think, at some point in their career, and you can't do anything with it?
Yeah.
I mean, at some point, yes, I mean, the players probably need to play better, but at some point, it's got to be coaching. I mean, the Titans didn't beat them on the ground, okay? The Titans, Derrick Henry had a pretty pedestrian game by his standards, 80 yards on 25 carries. What killed him was the passing attack. I mean, you can't let Ryan Tannehill dot you up going, he went 20 for 24, and nearly 250 yards. It was the first game, I think over 5 years that Ryan Tannehill had thrown 2 passes over 40 yards. The first game that he'd thrown 2 passes over 40 yards, going to Chris Moore and Traylon Burks. So if the Titans can do that to you, I'm terrified about what the Vikings can do to you. I mean, they can beat you with Jefferson, Addison, Osborne, Hawkinson, anyone they want. And then defensively, I mean, I think it's going to be a shootout. I think the Chargers will have their way. If you have any fantasy players on either of these teams, you should play them. But defensively, I think the Vikings can do enough. Hopefully, get a stop or two. And I think it really comes back to how awful the Chargers have been playing and how well they throw leads. So I'll pick the Vikings too. I'll say 34-31.
Yeah,
Okay.
Speaking of all pros, Eric Kendricks is also trending to be out, which is like great because he was a ex-Vikings player, so he doesn't have to play his own team again. So that's one all pro player that's like not playing. So
Even better for the Vikings.
We'll remove Bills Commanders. We'll just go to Monday night. Okay, now moving into the end of the week, we've got an interesting game here. I'm excited to talk about one of these teams.
Me too.
Eagles at Buccaneers, the first of 2 great Monday night football games. The Eagles are favored by 5.5, I believe, in this game. But I think this could be a really close game. First of all, starting off with the Eagles, I will say that I think this Eagles team, I know they're 2-0, but they're showing a lot of worrying signs that I thought they might have this year, which is the loss of both their coordinators. That pass defense looks pretty bad, I will say. Mac Jones was able to go, but once he got going, he was able to throw for 300 yards on them. Obviously, we already talked about how good Kirk Cousins was against them last week. And offensively, they got into a rhythm eventually just running inside zone over and over and over again. But this Eagles offense does look a little worrying to me. I think the passing game just seems a little out of sync. The read option game, especially for Jalen Hurts, doesn't seem as potent as it was last year. And I think it's because they're having a first-time offensive coordinator, and Shane Steichen was and we see what he's doing with the Colts now. He's a really good coordinator, a really good coach. And we're seeing that loss happen. So despite all that, now moving to the Buccaneers, we'll talk about them more, but I think Baker Mayfield's having a really good year. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, that defense is still pretty good. But I'm going to take the Eagles to win a very, very close game. I just think ultimately they're just have more talent. I'll say like 27-26 that the Eagles win. But close game, okay. I think, and I could see the Buccaneers.
I think this is the game that I might take the upset on for the week. Sorry, did I interrupt? My bad.
No, go.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I can't hear you guys sometimes, so my bad. I think this is the game that I might take the upset for the week. This is a team, honestly, maybe it's just what they did to the Vikings just really surprised me, but I think this is a team that can really surprise a lot of teams. I just want to say I love this for Baker Mayfield. He's finally playing some great football after being clowned on by Colin Cowherd. He told him to retire, become a Fox News.
Yeah, he wanted Baker to go into college football.
Yeah, yeah.
Which I think Baker would be great at, by the way.
Yeah, he would be great. But this first of all, in terms of like as a passing offense unit, right now the Eagles are 29th in the league. They're averaging 162.5 yards. And granted, it's because of their amazing rushing offense. But and the Bucs right now are 9th in the league. Baker Mayfield and like Mike Evans right now, like they're like locked in, and Chris Godwin is amazing too. Like this run defense from the Buccaneers is amazing, and if there's anything that I think you know when you think of the Eagles offense, you think of the run game. So this is gonna be how good is that Eagles run game versus how good is that like Bucs rush like rushing God damn it, pass rush. That's what I was trying to go for. It'll be interesting because it's one of the best O-lines in the league. I think Baker Mayfield is gonna get the win and in Tampa against the Super Bowl I'm sorry, guys. I'm not. This is not a good day.
Yeah,
for
there
me
you
today.
go.
Against the Eagles who won the NFC. But yeah, I got the Bucs winning. I also think it's going to be a close game. Like I'll go 2017.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair point about the Bucs. I think they've been playing really well. It's just I've seen this too many times with Baker.
I want to believe that he's back.
This is a new Baker.
This is a new Baker. I mean, you see a few good games and then the wheels fall off eventually. It might not fall off this week. I certainly hope it doesn't. I hope they don't fall off at all. I have Mike Evans and Rachaad White in fantasy. My team name is in Baker. We trust. I'm trusting him with my livelihood right now. But I think the biggest thing for me that's gonna make this game interesting is the pass rush. Baker hasn't gotten much pressure yet. Last week he played the Bears, didn't get sacked. Week before Vikings, I think got sacked once. This week you play, I think, arguably still the best pass rush in the NFL. I mean, I think it's a okay.
Yeah, top pass rush.
Yeah, I mean, top to bottom.
Let's put some respect on the Steelers and the Niners. Yeah.
Yeah, no, no, don't get me wrong, they're great. They got great individual pass rushers, but I think top to bottom, this is the best defensive line in the league. And they gave Kirk Cousins an extremely hard time. Kirk sat there and he took it, and he played a good game. Can Baker do the same? Baker is not Kirk Cousins.
But could he?
Could he be? We don't know.
I could see Baker doing that, guys.
Baker's been taking his shots. We've seen that with Mike Evans. Does he have the time to take those shots this week? I don't know if he does. And if he doesn't, does this offense still work with taking what the defense gives them and maybe just settling for shorter passes and really having to drive their way down the field? I think that's the turning point in this game for me. I think the pass rush is going to get home and fluster him. I do have concerns about the pass defense of the Eagles, but I think the pass rush, hopefully, can outweigh those secondary concerns. Offensively for the Eagles, running the ball might be a little bit of a hard time against this defense, who have been good at the run defense for years. I think Jalen Hurts finds his footing. Yes, the coordinators scare me, but I do think that they have enough talent for them to regain their footing and really start to hit a rhythm. And when we really get into the thick of things, I think the Eagles can pull this one out. I'll say 27-24.
I just hope Baker can continue to do well, because I really miss those at home with Baker Mayfield commercials. They were the highlight of football commercials when they were coming out, and unfortunately because he was forced out of the Browns by a terrible organization, now I can root for him.
A really awful organization.
It was a real conflict whenever he was on the Browns. But anyway, final game of the week, Rams at Bengals. Super Bowl rematch of a couple years ago. Initially, I didn't even register for me that this was a Super Bowl matchup. For some reason, this Super Bowl is kind of just
a blip on the radar.
It's blipped.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why. It was a good Super Bowl. It just kind of not super memorable, I think, in comparison to others. But Super Bowl rematch. Matthew Stafford, Aaron Donald, Puka Nacua, Kyron Williams. Never thought I did not know who Puka Nacua was this time 2 weeks ago.
Me neither.
But
no one knew.
Apparently, he's like the second coming of Justin Jefferson.
Cooper Kupp.
I don't know. He might be the best receiver we've ever seen. But this offensive powerhouse of the Rams, saying a lot of words I did not expect to say, is coming to Cincinnati to face Joe Burrow and the Bengals, who are struggling again. Did not expect to say that. But Cincinnati is somehow favored by 1.5. Not sure what the line.
If Joe Burrow plays, I think it's fair to say they're favored.
I guess, but this is still an 0-2 team facing a 1-1 team that has played really well overall. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna take the Rams in this one. I don't know. I think the Bengals are gonna really struggle in this game. I think it's the Burrow injury won't magically solve itself in a week. I think Matthew Stafford is playing like legitimately even better to me right now. He's playing than the Super Bowl year at this point in the Super Bowl year, just because he's playing really smart without Cooper Kupp, with much worse playmakers than he had at that time. and much worse personnel. And Sean McVay and him are putting on a masterclass. They're starting, I think, like 19 rookies on this team. Just
I don't think that's true.
Or they're having there's like 19 rookies on the starting roster though.
Oh, okay, maybe.
Yeah,
Okay.
but there are this team is very young. But it seems that the draft capital is paying off and this defense is playing better as well. So yeah, I'm gonna take the Rams. I'm gonna say 20-17. I think it's gonna be a close game, but I think Matthew Stafford just continues to play well, and maybe we'll see if Joe Burrow is back. But I'm not sure if it will be this week.
Yeah. No. First of all, I just want to lead by saying that I'm going to take the Bengals this week. I think this is the week that they step up. This is a very beatable team. We know the talent from the Bengals, but I just want to applaud the Rams for like whatever they're doing without Cooper Kupp. Like, yeah, like Arjun said, like I didn't know these names either. I don't think Rohan knew these names either. Like no one knew these names. Kyron Williams, like in terms of like fantasy as well, like amazing waiver wire pickups. Like Arjun like picked them up on the turf league, which is kind of unfortunate. But I'm looking forward to this, but I just have enough like trust in the Bengals that like Joe Burrow is going to come out with the firepower at home against not a great defense. This is a defense that they can tackle. So I don't really have a great reason to go against the Rams. I just have a good reason to like trust the not based on the last two games, just to relive their former self from the past few years. So I'll go with the Bengals just off of that.
I don't know. This is a tough one. I mean, I'll start by saying, Joe Burrow is his status is very much up in the air this week, and if he's not playing, I don't think it's a question. I think the Rams win this one. Even then, with a much bigger question mark looming over my head, I'll pick the Rams, I guess. Actually, I don't know. I mean, both these teams, I think, have like really big question marks. Obviously, the Bengals have a lot of talent, but Joe Burrow's not where he needs to be right now. Like passing wise, their pass offense isn't good. Defensively, their pass defense looks pretty awful too. Their rush defense looks pretty bad. They let the Browns run all over them week 1, and then the Ravens run all over them week 2. And then you come into this week. I mean, the Rams aren't necessarily a team known for having a really good run game. I think things do start through Matt Stafford and I guess Puka Nacua. But I think they can do enough in that area. I guess Matt Stafford will have a pretty solid game. Nacua and Atwell, I think, look really, really good as a wide receiver 1 and 2 right now, surprisingly. So I'll hold on to that belief. I think they can pass the ball effectively, get down the field. The Rams' pass defense has also been pretty solid. I mean, Geno Smith was really held in check week 1. Last week, Purdy was fine, but the reality was that McCaffrey ran all over them, which was the issue. So I think if they can provide further issues for Joe Burrow, then they can really put this game away. So I'll pick the Rams here. Really close, kind of gritty game. I'll say 20-17.
I'll just say, for everyone dissing the Rams right now, or if there is anybody, they played arguably the best defense in the NFL last week and basically took them to the fourth quarter. It was a tie game at halftime. So I think the Rams, I was completely wrong about them. I think they're going to be a contender the rest of the year. And once they get Cooper Kupp back, this could be a really dangerous
Might be the scariest trio in the league.
Yeah. And did not expect Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, and Kyron Williams to be one of the scariest offenses in the league, but that's football, and that's the NFL. But yeah, that's about it for our Week 3 episode and our Week 3 preview. This is going to be a really exciting Week 3. We're going to learn a lot about these 0-2, 2-0, and 1-1 teams. Steelers on Sunday Night Football. Please win. I really hope so against the Raiders. But we didn't talk about them because, by request of Rohan, we've talked about the Steelers way too much.
It's just a mid-game. It's such an awfully mid-game.
It's okay. There's not going to be much to talk about with that game anyway. But check out our Instagram for picks. We'll have power rankings coming out after next week's episode once we enter Week 4. So excited to get back into that. And make sure to stay tuned for our episodes. My name is Arjun.
I'm Sri Bamkanda.
And I'm Rohan Patel.
And we'll see you next week in Week 4 on the turf.